My GF said, "I love you, but I'm not ready for the boring couple life. I want to have fun before settling with someone safe like you." So I gave her all the freedom she said she needed and started living my life without her. Months later, she wants us back. Hey, Reddit. My girlfriend of 4 years told me she needed to feel young and wild before settling down with me, and she genuinely believed I would just sit here waiting for her return. She completely lost it when she realized I had already moved on. I'm 32, male, and I spent 4 years with Tiffany, 29, female, believing we were building something real. We met when we both had our __ together. I'm an insurance claims adjuster in Charlotte, and she worked in marketing for a tech company. The first 3 years felt golden. We were that couple everyone else admired. Weekend trips to Asheville, hiking, real conversations over dinner instead of staring at our phones like zombies. She would bring me coffee in bed on Saturdays, and I'd surprise her with concert tickets. Normal couple __, but it felt meaningful. She was smart as hell, funny, ambitious. She'd get genuinely excited hearing about my fraud cases. Catching insurance scammers is apparently sexy when you're not dead inside yet. I'd help her brainstorm marketing campaigns and watch her crush client presentations. We felt like a team. After 18 months, we moved in together and found this sick place in Valentine. 2 bedrooms, a decent kitchen, enough space for both our crap without feeling cramped. She decorated it like a magazine spread, yet somehow it still felt like home. We cooked together on weeknights, binged Netflix, talked about getting a dog when we eventually bought a house. I was thinking marriage and had been for over a year. Not in a desperate got to lock this down way, but in a genuine can't imagine life without her the one kind of way. All that cheesy garbage that sounds ridiculous until it's your reality. Then around year 3, things started getting weird. She began scrolling Instagram longer, showing me posts from her single friends hitting clubs, her voice carrying this wistful tone that hadn't been there before. She started complaining about our routine. We were apparently boring now. I suggested alternatives, dancing lessons, rock climbing, weekend trips somewhere new, but nothing fixed whatever was gnawing at her. 2 people started poisoning the well. First was her sister Ruth. I used to think she was cool, but lately she'd been filling Tiffany's head with toxic about experiencing everything before settling down. Real helpful advice from someone whose longest relationship lasted 6 months. Ruth would show up to their weekly coffee dates armed with Tinder horror stories, telling Tiffany she was wasting her youth acting like an old married woman. Then there was Brianna, Tiffany's new 23-year-old coworker who treated Charlotte nightlife like her personal playground. She posted thirst traps with captions about living your truth and not settling for less and started dragging Tiffany out for girls' nights. My voice of reason through all this was Hunter, my best friend since middle school. We've been tight forever, the kind of friendship where we roast each other relentlessly but would throw hands for each other without hesitation. One night during a gaming session, while Tiffany was out on another girl's night, we were running through a new RPG when Hunter paused mid-boss fight and said, "Dude, your girlfriend's having a midlife crisis at 28. That's mathematically impressive." I tried to brush it off and said she was just figuring some out. He shot back, "Yeah, she's figuring out how many dicks she can sample before settling for your reliable ass." Hunter never sugarcoated anything. He told me that when someone starts acting like being with you is a prison sentence, it's time to plan your escape route. The red flags were everywhere, but I convinced myself it was just a phase. Everyone questions their choices sometimes, right? I thought if I stayed steady and remained the man she fell for, she'd snap out of it. I was wrong. 2 incidents should have told me everything. But when you're 4 years deep and planning a proposal, you convince yourself rough patches are just obstacles. First was the birthday disaster. Tiffany's 28th birthday fell on a Friday, and I planned what I thought was perfect. Dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date, followed by surprise tickets to see the indie band she'd been obsessing over. Thoughtful, personal, romantic. She was distant at dinner, constantly checking her phone and giving one-word answers. When I presented the tickets, hoping to salvage the night, she barely glanced at them. She'd already made plans with Brianna and the girls and hadn't bothered telling me. We ended up at some trendy bar in Southtown where drinks cost more than most people's hourly wage. I drove home alone while she stayed out until 3 a.m. She Ubered back, passed out on the couch without a word, and the next morning acted like nothing had happened. "Thanks for a great birthday, babe," she said, as if the humiliation of the night before didn't exist. Then 3 weeks later came her company holiday party. I'd gone with her 3 years in a row, always introduced proudly as her boyfriend, making the rounds together. This time felt different from the first minute. She found Brianna immediately and treated me like her Uber driver instead of her date. When she introduced me to new people, it was just Ryan. No explanation of who I was or why I was even there. When her boss casually asked how long we'd been together, Tiffany laughed like it was a joke and said we weren't putting labels on anything right now. 4 years together. Living together for 2.5 of them. My name was on the lease. My toothbrush sat next to hers every morning and every night, but apparently we weren't putting labels on anything. Then this new guy, Derek, showed up. Some hotshot account manager, maybe 26, rocking one of those man buns that practically screams, "I peaked in college." He spent the entire night orbiting her, complimenting her, bringing her drinks, making inside jokes about work. Honestly, I wasn't part of, and Tiffany soaked it up. She loved every second. Whenever I tried to join their conversation, Derek would smoothly steer it back to work topics I couldn't contribute to. When I suggested we dance, Tiffany said she was busy networking. When I asked if she wanted to step outside for some air, she told me to stop hovering. I felt less like her boyfriend and more like an inconvenience she'd brought along by accident. The ride home was silent until we pulled into our parking garage. I kept my eyes on the windshield and said, carefully, "Derek seems nice." I was testing the waters. She didn't hesitate. "He is really adventurous, you know. Makes me feel like there's so much I haven't experienced yet." That night, I lay next to someone who was physically beside me but mentally already gone. I should have started planning my exit right then. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching rock climbing gyms, trying to figure out how to transform myself into the exciting guy she suddenly wanted. I convinced myself the problem was that I wasn't dynamic enough, spontaneous enough. I ignored the obvious truth that the problem wasn't who I was. It was that she didn't want me anymore. Hunter called while I was deep into Google searches for fun activities for couples. "Dude, why are you online at 2 a.m. looking up skydiving lessons?" he asked. I told him I was just trying to be more spontaneous. He sighed in that way he does when I'm being an idiot. "Ryan, my man, listen carefully. If someone makes you feel like you need to become a different person to keep them interested, that person is not for you. Also, you're afraid of heights, you absolute walnut." I laughed, but it didn't land. The ring in my sock drawer felt heavier every day. Still, I kept telling myself this was just a rough patch. I was working overtime trying to save something that was already dead. The conversation that finally ended everything happened on a Tuesday night in March. I had just finished reviewing a complicated fraud case when Tiffany sat down across from me with that look. You know, the one. The "we need to talk" face that makes your stomach drop. The pre-break proposal expression. She launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech about how she'd never really lived and needed to experience what it was like to be young and free before settling down with someone safe like me. Safe. There it was. She'd been talking to Ruth and Brianna again. They both believed she was wasting her prime years acting like she was already married. She said she needed to get some things out of her system before she could truly appreciate what I offered. The entitlement was staggering. She wanted to test drive other guys while keeping me on layaway like some backup appliance. I asked her plainly, "So what are you saying exactly?" She took a breath and said, "I think we should take a break," then quickly added, "Not forever. Just until I figure this out. I need to know what else is out there so I can come back to you with no regrets. I just want to have fun before the boring couple life." She honestly believed this was a favor to our relationship. In her mind, screwing around with exciting guys would somehow help her appreciate boring, reliable me. I stared at her. "You're asking me to wait around while you test drive other men to make sure I'm really what you want." She stumbled over her words, probably hearing it out loud for the first time. But then she doubled down with some underscore about how if I truly loved her, I'd want her to be sure about us. She said maybe 6 months, maybe a year, however long it took. A whole freaking year of my life on pause while she auditioned other dick to confirm mine was worth keeping. I asked, so it's a breakup with the option to come back if your better plans don't work out? She shook her head. No, I'm not breaking up with you. I'm just asking for space to grow as a person, while dating other people. I asked, while exploring my options? She said yes. At least she was finally honest. I sat there looking at the woman I had planned to propose to in 3 weeks. The ring was 20 feet away, waiting for a moment that would never come. For years of building something I believed was real, permanent, worth protecting. And she wanted to toss it aside to see if the grass was greener, fully expecting I'd still be here when she returned. I said, okay. She looked surprised, like she had expected a fight. You want space to figure things out? You got it. Take all the time you need. What I understood in that moment was simple. The woman I loved had been replaced by someone who saw me as a retirement account instead of a partner. She packed a bag that night and went to stay with Ruth while we figured out the logistics. After she left, I sat alone in our apartment and pulled the ring box out of my sock drawer. $8,000 and 3 months of planning for a future that had never truly existed. The next day, I returned the ring and got my money back. I took that $8,000 and built the ultimate gaming setup. Top-tier graphics card, custom cooling, the works. I went all in. Tiffany used to complain that my old PC was too loud and took up too much space in the apartment. Now I had a beast sitting on my desk, something that could run anything maxed out without breaking a sweat. Hunter came over to help me set everything up. He didn't say a word about Tiffany leaving. Not one. He just showed up with drinks in one hand and cable management tools in the other like that was the only thing that mattered. Holy dude, he said, staring at the parts spread across my table. This thing could probably run NASA simulations. He installed the new graphics card with the focus and precision of a surgeon. What's the cooling setup? He asked. Custom loop, dual radiators. Thing's going to be silent as a library. He smirked. Silent as your love life is about to be. Then he paused and actually looked at me seriously, which, for the record, is usually a good sign. Now we can finally get back to completing that co-op campaign without someone complaining about us ignoring her. I also got a dog. I'd always wanted one, but Tiffany said she was allergic. She wasn't. She just didn't want the responsibility. I found a German Shepherd mix at a rescue. 2 years old, already house-trained. I named him Ziggy. Bringing him home changed everything. He forced me out of bed early for walks. He gave me a reason to explore new trails instead of sitting in the apartment replaying old conversations in my head. And somehow, he turned out to be the best wingman ever. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in ages. Relief. The morning after Tiffany left, I sat at the kitchen counter drinking coffee, and my thoughts felt clear for once. No more walking on eggshells. No more trying to be exciting enough to keep her attention. No more managing someone else's quarter-life crisis. Within a week, I joined a boxing gym in Southtown. A real gym. The kind where guys go to hit, and get strong. It smelled like sweat and leather and hard work. The owner, Mike, was a 50-year-old ex-Marine who'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan. No, philosophy. Show up, work hard, get better, or get out. That was the rule. He introduced me to his crew. Tommy, the firefighter. Marcus, the software engineer. Big Jim, the construction foreman. These weren't guys sitting around dissecting feelings. They showed up, put in the work, and pushed each other to improve. I started going every day after work. The physical exhaustion was exactly what I needed. It gave me something solid to focus on besides Tiffany's betrayal. I also hit the regular gym hard. Not the Planet Fitness, I'd coasted through for years, but real lifting, deadlifts, squats, bench press. I cleaned up my diet, started tracking macros, treated my body like a machine that needed proper fuel instead of whatever was convenient. Within a few months, the change was obvious. I'd always been in decent shape, but now I was actually strong. Not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because I was finally taking care of myself instead of pouring all that energy into someone else's emotions. Hunter stayed my constant gaming partner through all of it. He'd roll up after my workouts with takeout, and we'd tear through whatever new release had dropped. The guy has this uncanny ability to make everything funny, even when I'm in a rough headspace. One night while we were waiting for a match to load, he looked at me and said, "Bro, you're getting legitimately jacked. Like, remember when you used to struggle opening pickle jars? Now you look like you could deadlift a car." I shrugged. "It's therapeutic hitting things legally." He nodded. "Yeah, well, just don't get too swole. Some of us still need to feel masculine around here." He paused, reconsidered. "Actually, never mind. Get freaking huge. I want people to see us together and think I hired security." At some point, Hunter started a group chat with me, Tommy, Marcus, and Big Jim called Ryan's Glow Up Committee. It turned into a non-stop stream of roasting mixed with genuine encouragement. Hunter posted another shirtless Jim pic yet? The ladies of Charlotte need to know what they're missing. Tommy chimed in, "Dude's going to need a bigger doorway soon." Marcus added, "Still think you should start an OnlyFans. Insurance adjusters gone wild." Big Jim kept it simple. "Y'all are idiots, but Ryan's definitely winning this breakup." Meanwhile, Tiffany was documenting her self-discovery journey on Instagram. Posts from clubs in Noda, always with Brianna and Derek from her office, who had apparently become her tour guide to the exciting single life. There was something forced about her captions, like she was trying to convince herself just as much as her followers that she was living her best life. My social media told a different story. Instead of sad Ryan surrounded by takeout containers, my Instagram had boxing training clips, gym selfies where I was clearly getting jacked, weekend hiking trips with the crew and Ziggy. According to Ruth, who started calling occasionally, probably fishing for information, Tiffany was confused about why I seemed so happy. She had expected me to be devastated. 6 weeks in, Tiffany started reaching out. At first it was casual texts asking how I was doing, bringing up shared memories, sending photos of places we'd been together. But I was genuinely busy. When she asked to grab coffee and catch up, I was getting ready for sparring. When she suggested watching our old favorite show together, I was meal prepping and planning my training schedule. One Tuesday around 10 p.m., she called while I was out with the boxing crew grabbing dinner after training. During one of those conversations, she paused and said quietly, "You sound different. Are you seeing someone?" she asked. I took a breath and kept it simple. "I'm just living my life, Tiffany." The simplicity of that statement seemed to completely derail her. She had expected me to be in suspended animation, waiting around while she sampled the buffet and then came back to her safe choice. 3 months into Tiffany's journey, the cracks were showing. Not just in the forced Instagram captions that tried too hard, but in the panicked calls Ruth started making. Derek lasted 3 weeks before showing his true colors. The guy was 26, living with roommates in a shitty university area apartment, and his big idea of adventure was getting high and playing Xbox until 3 a.m. on work nights. When Tiffany suggested doing something that didn't involve dive bars or his gaming setup, Derek told her she was killing the vibe. He flirted with other women right in front of her and claimed he wasn't ready for anything exclusive, even though he had pursued her hard. He ghosted her for a week, then showed up to a company happy hour with some 22-year-old intern. Tiffany had to stand there and watch him make out with his replacement while her coworkers pretended not to notice. After Derek came Brad, the personal trainer who looked great on paper but turned out to be a walking red flag factory. He was so obsessed with his body that he would cancel dates for extra gym sessions. He critiqued Tiffany's food choices, suggested she tighten up her routine, and expected her to split everything even though he made twice her salary. He started openly flirting with other women at their gym. When Tiffany confronted him, he accused her of being insecure and clingy and said he needed space to focus on his fitness goals. Translation, he had found someone hotter. Then there was Troy, the creative soul she met at some art gallery opening. On their second date, he borrowed $60 to pay for drinks and then spent the rest of the night mansplaining why traditional relationships were just societal constructs. Troy lasted a month before Tiffany caught him hooking up with one of her friends. Each failure hit harder because Tiffany had burned bridges to chase these losers. She had bragged about how much better life was without boring, predictable Ryan. Now she was getting played by guys who would not have lasted a week in my world. Her friend group imploded in spectacular fashion. Brianna, the mastermind behind Tiffany's liberation, turned out to be a snake who could not handle her friend getting male attention. When Tiffany started dating Troy, Brianna immediately began undermining it, claiming she had heard things about his reputation. The truth came out when Tiffany walked in on Brianna hooking up with Troy at a house party. Brianna's explanation was simple. "You said you weren't exclusive. I was just having fun." Tiffany's social circle took sides, and most of them chose Brianna because she was younger, hotter, and brought more guys around. Tiffany found herself excluded from group chats, uninvited to parties, basically ostracized from the very scene she had thrown our relationship away to join. Meanwhile, my life kept getting better every week. Boxing had become addictive in the best way. I had moved from just hitting bags to actual sparring. Mike had me focused on technique, footwork, combinations. The confidence boost was unreal. But the real game changer was Haley. I met her at the regular gym where I was lifting. She was a veterinarian, 30, recently moved from Raleigh. Smart, funny, sarcastic as hell, and genuinely hot. More importantly, she was impressed by my dedication to training instead of threatened by it. Haley had her own apartment, her own life, her own hobbies. Turned out she was a gamer too. She had a killer PC setup and could trash talk better than most guys I knew. We started working out together, and sometimes coffee after the gym turned into dinner. Dinner turned into gaming sessions at her place. Everything about it felt easy in a way that was completely foreign after 4 years of walking on eggshells. Hunter met her when she came over for one of our gaming nights. I was nervous about that introduction because Hunter's filter tends to disappear around new people, and I did not want him scaring off someone I actually liked. "So, you're the veterinarian?" Hunter said, dropping into his usual spot on my couch. "Ryan told me you can actually kick his ass at Call of Duty. I'm going to need to see evidence of this claim." Haley did not hesitate. "Oh, I don't just kick his ass. I completely destroy him," she said, grabbing a controller. "Fair warning, though. I talk a lot of underscore when I play." Hunter grinned. "I like her already." 3 hours later, after Haley had thoroughly demolished both of us in every game we played, Hunter pulled me aside. "Dude, this one's actually cool. Like genuinely cool, not I'm pretending to be cool to get male attention cool. Also, she's better at games than you, which is both hilarious and kind of hot." The difference between Haley and what I had before was night and day. She appreciated that I was disciplined about training instead of calling it obsessive. She thought my insurance work was interesting because I had stories about catching fraudsters. She loved that I was building new skills and real friendships instead of seeing it as competition. With Tiffany, I always felt like I was auditioning for the role of boyfriend. Like every day I had to prove I deserved to be there. With Haley, I just felt like myself, and somehow that was more than enough. Tiffany's texts started coming more often, and they weren't subtle anymore. The casual, "How are you doing?" messages slowly turned into obvious fishing expeditions about how she missed our Sunday cooking sessions and how our anniversary restaurant was running specials that made her think of me. Then she saw the Instagram post that completely broke her brain. I had posted a photo from a hiking trip with Haley and Ziggy. It wasn't even a couple photo, just the three of us at a scenic overlook. Haley looked incredible. Natural beauty, genuine smile, completely comfortable in her own skin. The total opposite of the try-hard club photos Tiffany had been putting up. Within an hour, my phone blew up with unhinged messages asking who this basic girl was, claiming she was obviously fake and putting on an act, and demanding to know if I was seriously seeing some random gym girl instead of working on us. When I showed Hunter the texts, his response was immediate. "Bro, we need to document all this crazy. This is restraining order level insanity. And also, it's going to be hilarious to look back on when you're married to someone who isn't completely nuts." 6 months after Tiffany left to find herself, she called with that tone that said she had made a decision and expected the world to rearrange itself around it. She wanted to meet for dinner to have a real conversation about us. I agreed, partly out of curiosity and partly because I had genuinely moved on. When she walked into the Plaza Midwood restaurant on Thursday night, the difference was obvious. She looked the same physically, but her energy had shifted. The confident woman who left had been replaced by someone who looked tired, uncertain, maybe even desperate. We ordered, made small talk, but I could see her building towards something the whole time. Finally, she took a deep breath and launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech. She said these past months had been eye-opening. She had learned so much about herself and what really mattered. She was sorry for hurting me, but hoped I could understand that she needed to explore those feelings instead of suppressing them and resenting me later. She still managed to make it sound like cheating on me had been some kind of favor to our relationship. Everything she experienced out there, she said, just confirmed what she already knew deep down. I was her person, the one she wanted to build a life with. She was ready now to commit, to talk about marriage and kids and buying a house. She presented it like it was some grand reward I had been patiently waiting my whole life to earn. Her decision to settle for me was framed as a gift I should feel lucky to receive. She had gotten all the wild stuff out of her system and could finally appreciate what I offered. She kept saying how grateful she was that I had been patient and understood what she needed to do. "You were right to wait for me," she said with a smile that probably would have worked 6 months ago. "I know it was hard, but this is exactly why we're perfect together. You're stable and reliable, and now I know for sure that's what I want. We can pick up where we left off, and it'll be even better because I got all my doubts out of the way." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand like we were already back together. Like this dinner was just a formality before we resumed our regularly scheduled relationship. "I'm thinking we could move somewhere bigger," she continued, apparently having mapped out our entire future during her Uber ride over. "Maybe start looking at houses in Myers Park. I know you've been saving money and my career is really taking off now. We could be engaged by Christmas if we wanted." I let her finish without interrupting. I just sat there watching this woman who had once been the center of my universe try to reclaim a position that no longer existed. When she was done, I stayed quiet for a long moment, honestly amazed at how different I felt sitting across from her. "Tiffany," I said finally, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I wasn't waiting for you." The confusion that flashed across her face would have been funny if it weren't so sad. Like I had just told her the sky was green. "What do you mean you weren't waiting? We agreed to take a break so I could figure things out. And now I have. This is what breaks are for, Ryan." Apparently, in her mind, taking a break was like hitting pause on Netflix. Everything would stay exactly where she left it until she decided to press play again. "I'm seeing someone seriously now," I told her. "Haley. She's a veterinarian. And she chose me first. Not after exhausting other options." The shift in her face was instant and ugly. The entitled confidence collapsed into something small and vicious. "Are you freaking kidding me?" Her voice rose enough that people at nearby tables started looking over. "You're seriously throwing away 4 years for some random so you just met? Her name is Haley. I don't give a or what her name is. What does she even know about you? Does she know you hate mushrooms? Does she know you get weird about horror movies? Does she even make good money? Veterinarians don't make." I looked it up. "You're going to struggle financially with someone like that when you could have me." She said it like she was presenting hard data, like love was a spreadsheet and she had better numbers. I didn't raise my voice. "She chose me, and I'm happy with her. It's over, Tiffany." Her expression twisted. "But I chose you," she shot back, her voice climbing into that shrill register I used to dread. "I could have stayed with any of those other guys, but I chose to come back to you." The lies were almost sad. "You didn't choose me. You chose to explore your options while keeping me as backup. That taught me the difference between being someone's safety net and being genuinely wanted." "But we have history," she practically shouted, loud enough that the couple at the next table looked over again. "4 years together. You can't just throw that away for some random you barely know." The jealousy was radiating off her. She kept demanding details about Haley, where we met, how long we'd been dating, whether we were sleeping together, like she had the right to audit my life. Then she leaned forward with this sneer that didn't even look like her. "You know what this is? This is you trying to hurt me. You're dating some rebound to make me jealous. And honestly, it's working. But you're going to get bored of her in like 3 months. And then what? You'll have thrown away the best thing that ever happened to you for what? Some mediocre answer. I just stared at her, trying to reconcile this person with the woman I had once almost proposed to. I know you, Ryan, better than anyone. You think she's going to put up with your obsession with insurance fraud cases? You think she's going to love you the way I do? The entitlement was staggering. She genuinely believed that 4 years together gave her permanent ownership over my future, no matter what she had done. This is exactly what Ruth said would happen, she went on, getting more frantic by the second. She said you'd try to hurt me by dating someone else, but that eventually you'd realize what you gave up. Well, congratulations. It hurts. Are you happy now? I met her eyes. I'm just trying to build a life with someone who actually wants me. I do want you. That's what this whole conversation is about. You want me now after you confirmed I was the best you could do. That's not love. She slammed back. You're being such a dick about this. I came here to fix things between us and you're acting like I committed some crime by figuring out what I wanted. She truly believed she was the victim. Fine, she snapped, switching tactics again. If you want to be petty and date some rebound girl, whatever. But don't come crawling back to me when you realize what you're missing. Don't call me in a few months when you're bored of playing house with some basic surfer who doesn't challenge you. At that point, the delusion felt clinical. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, she said, grabbing her purse. Other people actually appreciate what I bring to the table. And in that moment she showed me exactly who she had become. Someone who treated love like a negotiation and other people's feelings like obstacles. On my way home, I texted Hunter. Nuclear meltdown complete. Actually thought I'd been sitting around waiting for her to finish test driving other dick. His reply came instantly. Lau, please tell me you recorded this. Also coming over with victory drinks. This calls for celebration. But the weeks after that dinner felt less like celebration and more like watching someone unravel in slow motion. Tiffany cycled through all the classic stages, then blew right past them into something genuinely disturbing. First came the angry texts. I was throwing away something real for someone I barely knew. I was petty and vindictive for not accepting her apology. I would regret this when the honeymoon phase ended. Then came bargaining. She would do anything to prove she was serious about us. She would cut contact with Brianna and all the toxic influences. When that failed, she pivoted to manipulation. Ruth was apparently worried that I had isolated myself. My mom, who Tiffany definitely had not run into at Target, was asking about her. Tiffany herself was struggling with depression and might need professional help if I did not give her closure. I responded to none of it, which seemed to drive her completely insane. Hunter stayed my steady voice of reason through the whole _ show. Dude, she's basically demaying you the 5 stages of grief in real time, he said one night while we were gaming. Also, I think she's stuck on stage 1. Anger's supposed to be temporary, not a freaking lifestyle choice. But it didn't stop there. The messages went from pathetic to unhinged to honestly creepy. She started showing up at places she knew I would be. The grocery store I always went to. The coffee shop near my apartment. Even Mike's boxing gym, just happening to be there and trying to force conversations. She texted me screenshots of Haley's Instagram posts with commentary about how fake Haley looked. Somehow she found out Haley's work schedule and began leaving comments on the veterinary clinic's social media pages, asking pointed questions about staff professionalism and whether they properly screen their employees. When Hunter caught wind of that, even he stopped laughing. Bro, she's officially entered Psycho X territory. Time to start documenting everything. Hunter didn't even hesitate. He pulled out his phone like this was a tactical operation. Screenshot every crazy text. Save every weird comment she makes. This _ is 2 steps away from boiling a rabbit on someone's stove. I laughed at the time, but it stopped being funny fast. The real psycho _ started when she created fake Instagram accounts to stalk both of us. She would like old photos from years back and then unlike them. She watched every story I posted within minutes. Random accounts with generic names started following Haley, leaving passive-aggressive _ on her posts. Wow, your boyfriend is so lucky. I hope he knows how good he has it. On a photo of Haley hiking. Some women just have that natural glow. No filters needed, unlike some people, lol. On a makeup-free selfie. Haley figured it out immediately because she's not an idiot. Instead of getting intimidated, she decided to have a little fun with it. When one of Tiffany's fake accounts commented, "Your dog is so cute. Does your boyfriend help take care of him?" Haley replied, "Thanks. Yeah, my boyfriend is amazing with animals. Way better than my ex's ex, who was apparently allergic to responsibility." After that, Tiffany's fake account got more aggressive. The back and forth was brutal. Haley was roasting her without even knowing her real name, just reading the desperation bleeding through those fake profiles. Every response was sharp and perfectly aimed. The breaking point came when Tiffany started showing up at Haley's work. She would bring some random dog in for a consultation and then try to pump the staff for information about Haley's schedule, her relationship status, whether she seemed stable or was just rebounding. Haley's co-workers told her about the strange woman asking invasive questions, and Haley immediately connected the dots. That was when she screenshotted everything and sent it to me. The fake account messages, the workplace stalking, the social media harassment. We had documentation of all of it because we had been collecting evidence. "Your ex is completely unhinged," Haley said when she showed me everything. "This isn't heartbreak. This is obsession. And honestly, it's starting to feel dangerous." She was right. When Tiffany started driving by Haley's apartment building and Haley caught her on the security cameras, that was it. We decided enough was enough. I filed for a restraining order. Hunter came with me to the courthouse for moral support and because honestly he wanted a front row seat to the consequences. "This is like Christmas morning," he said as we walked up the courthouse steps. "Watching a crazy ex get legally _ slapped for being a stalker. Peak entertainment right here." The process was surprisingly straightforward when you walk in with that much evidence. Screenshots of fake accounts. Security footage of her circling Haley's apartment. Witness statements from Haley's co-workers about the fake consultation visits. Painted a very clear picture of escalating harassment. Tiffany showed up to the hearing looking like she had crawled out of a dumpster. The obsession had taken a visible toll. She tried to play the victim, claiming she was only concerned about my mental health and that Haley was manipulating me against old friends. The judge wasn't buying any of it. The restraining order was granted for 1 year, with the possibility of extension if needed. No contact. No social media interaction. No showing up anywhere she knew we would be. Violation would mean immediate arrest. Tiffany stood there looking like her entire reality had collapsed. In less than a year, she had gone from confident woman exploring her options to someone with a restraining order against her. That night, Haley and I went out to dinner to celebrate, not because it felt triumphant, but because we could finally breathe without constantly looking over our shoulders. 3 months after the restraining order, Ruth called to tell me Tiffany had moved back to her hometown in South Carolina. Apparently the social isolation, the job stress from her workplace harassment incidents, and the legal costs had become too much to manage in Charlotte. "She seems to be getting help," Ruth said. "I think she finally realized how badly she messed up." "Good for her," I said, and I meant it. 6 months later, Haley and I moved in together. She brought her books, her plants, and her serious coffee addiction. I brought my training gear and the hard-won understanding that love is not supposed to feel like work. Hunter helped us move, of course, turning the whole thing into a running roast about my organizational skills and Haley's book collection. "Jesus Christ, Haley, how many books about veterinary medicine do you need? Are you planning to operate on dinosaurs?" he said, struggling with a box labeled textbooks that was heavy as hell. "Says the guy who owns 17 different gaming keyboards." Haley fired back. "Those are specialized tools," Hunter protested. "You just have 17 books about cow diseases." A year after that, Haley and I got engaged. The proposal wasn't some elaborate Instagram production. It was just the two of us after a morning hike, both sweaty and tired, standing there in that quiet stretch of trail, and absolutely certain that this was what choosing each other looked like. No production, no audience, no perfect lighting. Just us. When I told Hunter, his reaction was instant. About damn time. I was starting to think you were going to propose to your protein powder instead. Tommy and the boxing crew showed up for the wedding without hesitation. Marcus' side business had taken off, and he actually flew back from a client meeting just to be there. Big Jim handled all the setup because the man can build anything and somehow enjoys the chaos of folding chairs and last-minute adjustments. Hunter was my best man, obviously. His speech was exactly what you would expect. A perfect mix of roasting and something real underneath it. I've known Ryan since we were 12, he said. And I've watched him make exactly one good decision in his entire life. Dumping the psycho and marrying the veterinarian. Everyone laughed, including me, because it was funny and because it was true in a way that didn't feel bitter anymore. After the wedding, Tiffany sent one message from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. I know I messed up and I am really sorry. Congratulations. I never replied, but I genuinely hope she finds what she's looking for. Whatever second chances she gets, it won't be with me.